Hello and welcome to another episode. So, today I'll be covering some of the Japanese authors and also talk about Japan a little bit. How we did our trip and where did we stay, where did we go, and so on. So, again, my name is Rajiv Nalawadi, and let's get started. So, Japan essentially it can be described as another world in itself. So, essentially, there is uh, Japan, and then there is the rest of the world. That's how I personally look at it. And also, it has been referred to as the land of the rising sun. But I would say that it is a country with the most polite people that you can find in the world. And the politeness of the Japanese people, it takes away all the anger from any person that visits there. Essentially, even while you're driving or even moving around, the people are so polite. Like even in crowded cities, they are so friendly and so polite, essentially. So the basic conversation starters such as arigato gozaimasu, which is thank you, and also can be used for good morning and so on, and gomenasai, which is I'm sorry. So these two words itself are an indication that that Japanese people are so polite, or it's my personal opinion, by the way. And they can take away or melt away your anger, and that's what happened to me. Like just within the first 2 days of my arrival there, I could notice the major difference. Essentially, you can say like even while you're driving, people are providing like you the right of the way. So it melts away your anger. So some of the road rages from around the world, from the bigger cities around the world, has not been imported by Japan, and that's what I like. Uh, so Japan itself consists of four islands, which is Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu, and there are about 47 prefectures and or prefectures, or you can also call them as states. But in Japan, they refer to them as prefectures. So each prefecture has its own unique culture, kind of the different foods, the attractions, and that makes it an incredibly diverse country. Even though it's a very small country, it's a very diverse country, and it's very captivating. Any corner you kind of focus in any corner, and you can see a huge difference from one place to another. And the Shinkansens actually they zip through the countryside, whenever you're on the road, the Shinkansens or the bullet trains, they you can find them zipping around. And there was the first one that rolled out in 1964 for the Tokyo Olympics Games, and after that there have been multiple Shinkansen routes that are available in Japan, and you don't need sort of to drive, but I chose to drive essentially along with my family, and we drove around in a rental car or a rental van from Toyota. So this is how our trip looked like. The itinerary essentially was flying into Tokyo and flying out of Tokyo, and over a course of about 15 days overall. And this actually lists some of the stays, overnight stays, and so on. We visited the Honshu Island. So there are other islands, as I talked about. So we traveled in the van to these different places which are in Honshu Island, and Tokyo is on Honshu. So so is Osaka, Kyoto, and so on. So the time we chose to go to Japan, it was the cherry blossom season, and it's the most magical time of the year. Any time within Japan is magical, but this is an extra added thing. It's the most magical time of the year. It's between mid March to mid April, and you can see the maple trees are green, and essentially like the fall colors can be observed in November of the year. So that's also probably a very good time to visit. The Japanese also take their vacations around this time, like for the cherry blossom or the sakura season. And essentially, driving around there, you can see the cherry blossoms along the roads, in the small towns, by the streams, and so on. So essentially, it's the most magical time of the year, I can tell you. And we happened to visit even Mount Yoshino, which has the maximum number of cherry trees which were planted um, like many decades ago. And there are about 30,000 of these trees that go into bloom. And you can imagine like how how it may look. And it's sort of very crowded. At least the time we visited Mount Yoshino, it was very crowded. And somehow, due to the politeness of the Japanese people, we ended up at the top of the mountain. There were a lot of parking spots being provided, and buses were driving all the tourists around to reach the top. And after a certain point, the tourist buses would stop, and then the people would hike. But they kept pointing me towards the parking lot. I said, "Let me go, let me drive as much as I can." And I ended up in the mountain, at the top of the mountain. And the people are so polite. And basically, due to this politeness, I think we ended up at the top of the mountain. And once we reached the top, coming down was another adventure. Essentially, it was a single lane road that was filled with hikers going up the mountain and some of them coming down. I felt like Moses parting the Red Sea between the traffic that was going up and the one coming down. And I was trying to drive the van right down in the middle of the road. And so were other Ubers or other taxis that had uh, taken the visitors up the mountain and were bringing them down from the mountain. So cherry blossoms are everywhere. So it doesn't matter even if you don't drive around. They are available in the bigger cities as well, like Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, Nagoya. All of these places have cherry blossoms, and cherry blossoms around the moats of the castle and so on, like essentially along the streets. So you can find them everywhere. And I'm not tired saying this, it's the most magical time of the year. If one has to choose a time to visit Japan, it would be this cherry blossom season. So today we'll talk about the Japanese novelists, and for today's video, we'll talk about three authors: Keigo Higashino, Haruki Murakami, and Natsume Soseki. So Keigo Higashino. So he's one of my favorite Japanese authors. So he's a master novelist. Essentially, he's written many novels. Probably we won't be able to cover all of them today, but I will do more videos like with his other novels, because he's my favorite, and I have read all the ones that have been translated into English. And I'm not sure whether there are still a few that have not been translated, but I have at least read all the novels that have been translated into English, and he's my favorite. So that's the reason I've covered all of his novels. And he's in the genre of mystery and crime thrillers, but I would say it's more than that. So um, as I go through one of his novel, you will see what I mean about it. So Higashina was born on February 4th, 1958, in Osaka, Japan. And his multiple novels have ended up as movies. And basically, the movies have been inspired and adapted from his novels. They span like Japanese, Hollywood, and Bollywood genres. Although a lot of the movies in Bollywood, even though they are inspired by Keigo Higashino, they don't give him credit. But the latest one I saw, like on Netflix, called Kufia, it does give credit to him. Like The Devotion of Suspect X, it's based on that particular novel, and it did give credit to him. So thank you for the directors and producers of Kufia. So Higashino is an engineering graduate from the Osaka Prefecture University, and he combines his analytical skills and to talk about the mysteries of everyday life, and personally being an engineer, that's what drives me towards him. And uh, essentially he's like a very masterful novelist. So he can devise like the plots and the themes and the storyboard wonderfully. And one more thing about these Japanese authors, they tend to be very short novels, but they pack in a lot of intriguing things. So they keep you occupied. So Malice, that I'll be covering today by Keigo Higashino, is a wonderful novel. At the start of the novel itself, the best-selling novelist Kunihiko Hidaka, or Hidaka-san, is found brutally murdered in his home. This incident takes place on the night before he's planning to leave Japan, pack up and leave Japan, and relocate to Vancouver. And his body is found in his own home office, a locked room within his locked home, and the body is discovered by his dead novelist's wife, or Hidaka's wife, and the novelist's best friend, Osamu Nonaguchi. And but both have rock solid alibis as to where they were when this happened. So it seems like for a brief period that's the case, but as you turn through the chapters, you will find like the plot changes. uh, so arriving at the crime scene, this is again one of the Detective Kaga series. Detective Kiyoshiro Kaga recognizes Hidaka's best friend when he arrives on the scene, Osamu Nonoguchi, who is the best friend of the dead novelist as well. And Detective Kaga begins to investigate, and he eventually uncovers evidence that indicates that the two writers' relationship were very different than what they claimed, even though they were the best friends. So basically, it's a sort of a master class in the psychology. People who are studying psychology can go through this novel and understand so many things, and it's a mystery genre as well. It showcases like the intricate plot and the emotional resonance that Higashino builds with his characters. The storyline moves pretty fast. As I mentioned, the Japanese novels tend to be very short, like somewhere in the order of 200 to 250 pages or 270 pages at the maximum. For what I have read of Higashino's novels, for me it's very easy to finish within a day. So first, it seems like the usual whodunit. The whodunit goes out of the window pretty fast. Then it becomes a howdunit and eventually evolves to a whydunit. So that's the typical progress that you see within a crime thriller, right? And the chapters, as they progress, they go from whodunit, howdunit, and then whydunit. So that's how it progresses. So it's a great psychological exercise and a sort of a human lesson that we can learn as to how people think, a lot of malice, jealousy, how we live in the society, and so on. So it's a brilliant cat and mouse game. It's a Detective Kaga against finding out like who has done it and how they have done it and why they have done it. So it and the character motivations are kind of examined and re-examined. So the progress through the chapters, it goes through a change, and you get to experience it as well. And essentially, Kaga is also like a colleague of Nonoguchi from their earlier days as teachers. So you can see Kaga's insightful approach when he's solving this crime, and he's very methodical and a step-by-step process. And it's also a class for detectives, I think. Probably detectives are already taught like how to progress through each one of the crimes. But for me, being an engineer and reading this, it it sort of shows how you go about solving a crime, and it's the complexity of human relationships, the dark undercurrents of jealousy and ambition. The novel is sort of a quest to find the murderer, but also an exploration of motive, character, and essentially what does malice really mean? How do people think and how do they act, and so on. So it challenges it challenged me as a reader. The concept of truth, both in the actions of the characters and sort of the motivation. So, as a reader, you step into what the narrative that the author is trying to put out there, right? And I always try to do that. And I can imagine the protagonists and then the setting, like especially of Japan, like if you like if you have been to Japan, like how it may look like, the home and so on. The next author, so that's for novelists. Do go and read it. It's an awesome novel. Uh, and Haruki Murakami is the other author that I'll be covering today. And he was born on January 12th, 1949 in Kyoto, Japan. And he's older than Higashino. So he grew up in post-war Japan, and immediately after the World War II ended, right? So Murakami was deeply influenced by the Western culture, particularly a lot of its music. So you'll see him write about the music, the Western music, essentially, and he has a very unique narrative style. So uh, basically, Murakami is very well known. So a lot of people admire him a lot, and they are ardent followers of whatever he writes. And he has written many novels as well. And I'll be doing a video on his novels that I have read. I have read almost all the novels of Murakami, I think. So before embarking on his literary career, Murakami studied drama at Waseda University in Tokyo, where he also met his wife, Yoko. And after graduating, they opened a jazz bar named Peter Cat, which he ran through his 20s. And that's where he brings in a lot of the insight from how a bar operates, and how he gets involved, how he talks to customers there, and what kind of customers come and visit the bar. But that's a different novel, and he has written a lot of them. And this experience of jazz bar ownership and his passion for music essentially is found in his writing style. So it's very lyrical, and it's very rhythmic the way he writes. And there is a lot of fantasy stuff in his novels as well, like fishes dropping from the sky and cats and so on. Or cats are there in every one of the novels, or majority of the novels, I would put it that way. So cats are favorite of Japanese. So Murakami journey began when he was attending one of the baseball games, and he suddenly had an epiphany to write a novel. That's by his words, and that's where he wrote his first novel, Here to Witsing. And uh, today we'll be covering his novel called Norwegian Wood, and essentially it's a very nice read. The story is set in Tokyo during the 1960s. This was like a um, very much of a time where there was a lot of societal change happening in the world, and especially in Japan as well. So it is narrated by Toru Watanabe when he hears the Beatles song Norwegian Wood, and he's suddenly transported to the days in college. And a flood of memories come from this time when his world is filled with intense relationships and sort of the existential quests. So basically, at the heart of the narrative is Watanabe's complicated relationship with two women, Naoko and Midori. So Naoko is also the girlfriend of Watanabe's best friend, Kizuki, who tragically commits suicide during their high school years. And that's a sorrowful connection that Watanabe has with Naoko. And Namako has a struggle with mental health and overwhelming grief of losing Kizuki, and this draws like a lot of complexity, emotional complexity, right? And it's a relationship that Watanabe has with Naoko, which is filled with love and sadness. So Ultimately, Naoko ends up going to a retreat in a secluded mountain, a sanatorium, or like an institution, which symbolizes her battle with inner demons. And contrasting to Naoko fragility, right? Like there is Midori, who is vibrant, outgoing, and very spirited. And it's two characters which are kind of poles apart. And Midori is also very honest and very alive, and that's what Watanabe is drawn towards. And um, basically, Midori offers Watanabe a glimpse of the world where basically there is happiness and there is sorrow, but we choose what we tend to focus or what we need to focus on, and that's Midori's sort of outlook, and that has an impact on Watanabe as well. So it delicately explores the themes of love, loss, and the journey towards understanding oneself, and how Watanabe needs to understand himself. It's a story of growing up, and it's a painful transition. Like if we all realize going in from adolescence to adulthood, the characters are navigating this. These waters of the grief, love, and the search for identity overall. So Murakami it is essentially capturing the essence of youth and the longing, the confusions, and the clarity that come ultimately in the formative years of one's life. And we all go through it. And personally, it struck me like when I was going through this novel, there is so many phases of your life that you can relate to. And it's all about the bittersweet experience that is sort of our overall human experience, right? The novel's ending, though, it leaves the readers with a sense of sadness. And I will let you go and read this novel, not giving it half time. And when doing reviews, I'm not supposed to give out the entire storyline, just provide some tidbits of what the novel is about, and what to focus on and what I got out of it. So, our next author today is Natsume Soseki. And Natsume Soseki, essentially, I have personally a lot of influence from Natsume Soseki. He was born in 1867 in Ushigome, like Edo, which is now Tokyo, right? It used to be called Edo. So his early life was marked by sort of rapid westernization, which was happening in the Meiji era, and Japan was drawn towards the West during those times. And there were a lot of societal changes that deeply influenced Soseki. And he observes like a lot of the identity, tradition, and the society changes that were happening during those times. And his early education was in the classics of both Eastern and Western literature. He pursued a degree in architecture initially at the Tokyo University and then switched to English literature. So he writes very well. His prose is very lyrical, and I enjoy reading his. And as I mentioned, I've been personally influenced by Natsume. My own novel, which is My Twin is a Chow. Uh, I had already read one of his novels, and while writing My Twin is a Chow, I was deeply influenced by his novel, which is I'm a Cat. So the storylines are different. Mine is a collection of about 54 short stories. I'm a Cat is completely different, but here it's the cat is the narrator essentially. So uh, the first narrator in the novel is the cat, and it's unfolding. The story is unfolding through the eyes of the cat. It offers a very unique and humorous kind of perspective on how the 20th century Japanese society. He was talking about the Japanese society also around that time, and what kind of societal changes were going on, and what did the middle class of Japan experience during those times. And the cat essentially. Without a name, as in, the cat is without a name. It wanders into this household and decides that this is the home, and thus it begins its observer adventure and the commentary on the lives and behaviors of the different human characters. Uh, so the central human figure in the cat's observation is Mr. Kushami, a middle class teacher, and a figure that that is essentially one of an interesting character around that time. So uh, along with a lot to the cat's eyes, essentially, you get to know Mr. Kushami and also his friends, family, and the acquaintances, how they behave, how they talk. And the cat is observing probably like from a stove, curling up around the stove sometimes, and making these comments. So it's a narrator, and it's a first narrator in this novel, and it's talking about the various facets of society and the human nature. So there were a lot of social conventions which essentially Natsume Soseki observed around that time, and he wanted to bring out sort of the what it meant for Japan during this evolving world and the contrasts between the Eastern and Western. So I'm waving to one of my poor person here. uh, the cat, I think, with its sarcastic commentary, is serving as a vehicle for Soseki's critique and his hypocrisy and the comedic follies that were going on in the everyday life and the insights he's providing on the society around that time. And it's a profound reflection, essentially, of the human condition and the struggle to find one's place within a rapidly changing society. There are things which are rapidly changing even today. How can we find our place? So if you read this novel, you will come to understand a lot from Soseki how people have dealt with drastic changes that are going on in the society. And that's what we are experiencing even now. So that's it for today. Do subscribe to Life's Magical Journeys. If you would like to hear more of such stories, there are wonderful novelists around the world, and I would like to bring some of these novelists and their works essentially as part of this YouTube channel. And as I've mentioned, I'll be covering all the 197 countries in the world and the countries that I have already traveled, um, and an author from each one of those countries, at least one author from each one of the countries, and there is an author in all 197 of the countries in the world. So here are my socials, which I will also post down in the link when I post the video. YouTube channel as well as Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Join and subscribe to all the socials. I do put different kind of material out on these different socials. Instagram, I post reels of my travels. Facebook also has that. Facebook, I also do short narrative stories of my novels, and LinkedIn also has my short stories, which are from my novel. So do subscribe to all the channels, and thank you. And I will see you once again. Uh, Bye.